last night, Roosters 32, Bulldogs 12. Incredible result when you think about it, given that the Dogs are looking at top four and the Roosters are playing for their finals future. And it doubles down on the fact that last week at Suncorp Stadium wasn't an aberration. It wasn't out of the box. The Roosters appear to be one of the form teams in the comp. Are we shocked by this?
No, not really. No. Now that they're starting to get some players back, obviously, they had obviously injuries through the year. Sammy Walker obviously has a lot to do with what they're doing at the moment. He's on fire, and their forwards are just playing with so much confidence at the moment as well. So, look, I didn't think it was a huge surprise. I thought the Dogs, look, they didn't seem to offer too much. Their halves didn't seem to be doing too much. There wasn't much creativity amongst it. So they just seemed a little bit stale, I thought, the Dogs last night. Not many options. They've got their strike on the edge, which they seem to be using, particularly through Bronson Cherry. They liked his edge a bit, but I'd like to see, and I've said this a few times, and I'm not. This is not an attack on him or anything like that. But Stephen Crichton, with his ability, I'd like to see him be able to do more. I think they need to get the ball in his hands a bit more, or at least go looking for the ball, have a wander. I think he had like 7 carries for the whole game. As a star, as a strike centre, I'd like to see him get their hands on the ball a bit more.
I think what's become quite obvious for the Bulldogs in the last month is, well, they've won 2 and lost 2. They had two pretty bad performances, Roosters and Tigers. And the games they won, I think it was Warriors, Manly, Matt Burton was sensational. And the discrepancy between Matt Burton in those games that they've won and lost is quite telling. And when Matt Burton plays well, Canterbury play well. And
yeah.
He's been off in those 2 losses. I think he's so important to the way they play. And I think Cameron Ciraldo, which we'll get to, he was pretty disappointed after the game with the team's performance. And I just think consistency is what takes you from a good player to a great player. And Matt Burton, when he's on, they're a completely different football team.
We'll just have a listen to Cameron Ciraldo last night. And sometimes you hear coaches take a message into a press conference, and the really good coaches are really smart about what they say publicly. Obviously, they say everything behind closed doors, but what they bring out into the public forum, this is Ciraldo last night.
The last month has been disappointing. And, I sort of blame myself there because, we guys carrying niggles and that, and they just get through training instead of actually training, and I'm going to stop that. If you can't train, it sort of results in a performance like that. So we've got a deep squad. We've got a lot of good players that didn't play tonight, so if we don't want to prepare to win, then I'll put someone in that does want to prepare to win.
That's pretty brutal. That's very, very honest. And obviously he's honest with his players. Guys, you've heard about Cameron Ciraldo, about how he delivers messages to his players and gets them on the page that he wants them on. But to bring that out publicly is like, okay, enough of the shortcuts type thing. Not saying they're big shortcuts, but they're just little things that are resulting in big things like a 20-point hiding last night.
Yeah, but it's a long season. Yeah, and you probably the position the Dogs have been in for the majority of the year or all the year, where they've been kind of I'm not going to say cruising, but they've had the luxury of being at the top of the ladder most of the year. So I kind of get that, and they're kind of waiting for the semi-final kind of season to start. They know they're safe, but those little things are creeping. It's good coaching from Ciraldo to recognise those now, that sort of stuff's happening, so then he can nip it in the bud before it really gets out of control. But niggles and injuries, I get that too. He's going to have to start thinking, well, if I've got key players that are not getting through training sessions or not getting through certain days of the week for the training, well, what do I have to do now? We've got the pointy end of the season coming up. Can I afford to arrest him, or is it more important that I have him out there, try and get that good win, try and get that momentum going again?
He didn't name names at all, Chammy, apart from one.
Mm-hmm.
And he named a player who's playing Cup today. I think they're playing down in Canberra, Jake Turpin. So he said he's ready, and interesting the position he plays. I'm not sure what the messaging here is to the players that he didn't name about who aren't 100% right or maybe not doing what he wants them to do out there. But I think it leads to one player in particular, though, if he's bringing up Jake Turpin, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I think Satili might be back as well next week. So I wouldn't be surprised if Reid Marnie falls out of that 17. I don't think things are all well there between Reid Marnie and the club. And it was Cameron Ciraldo was interesting. Like, he obviously said, it's my fault. He took responsibility for the way he's coaching, right? But I reckon privately it would have been a different message. The message to the players was, if you're not going to be mentally and physically tough enough to compete at training, then you're not going to get the right to compete on game day. And you can definitely sense a frustration. This is not just come overnight from Cameron Ciraldo. This must have been building up. There's been a number of players who haven't been training, niggling injuries. He might be starting to question their toughness and their physical and their mental toughness to overcome niggling injuries and be there for the team, because they played like a football team who didn't have a session this week. So I think he recognises this is a line in the sand moment. If they're going to win a comp or challenge for this title, things are going to have to change at training. And he put his players on notice with what he said publicly, but no doubt privately he would have made that clear to them.
Hindy, did coaches in your day that you played for ever send messages out through the media just to double down on what was being said behind closed doors?
Not that I'm aware, no, because we always had it, straight to the face, mate. You're playing like this, or you're a soft, or whatever it had to be. It was always face to face, and there was no need to bring it out in the media. I don't know what that's going to achieve. If that's the direction Ciraldo's going, I don't get it. Whether it's just a smoky for the loss, but yeah, look, watching that game last night, I can't see who he could be talking about, to be honest with you. Like, I thought across the board, the amount of ball the Dogs had, the style they were playing, I thought everyone was trying to do their best. They just had no go forward. Like the middle was absolutely choked out. So I'm trying to think. Look, Lockie Galvin didn't have the best game defensively, but I'm just trying to think who. I thought when Reid Marnie came on, I thought there was a bit of lift there. Now there was a bit of aggression. You see him talking to the boys, chatting, trying to fire them up. There was that little section of the game where it got a little bit heated. A few high shots came in, all that sort of stuff, and you see Reid Marnie was going, let's get into these guys again, sort of thing. So I don't know if that's the direction he's thinking, but to me they were just beaten by a side that was tougher, stronger, faster, all that sort of stuff. Better game plan.
When they're quick, when they're good, they're quick, aren't they, the Roosters? And especially with their three in the middle, White, Collins, and Leniu.
I think that had a lot to do with it. Obviously, I spoke about Sammy Walker at the start, but they won the power game, which allowed the backs to do what they wanted to do. The Dogs never really seemed to get too much.
Well, that was always going to be their Achilles heel this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Their forward pack. Everyone was saying, well, yeah, they got Leo Thompson coming next year, but if you looked at it on face value at the start of the year, I know Max King's gone on to play Origin, but that was always going to be the question mark. Is that forward pack good enough to challenge the top teams when it matters most? And I think naturally the conversation over the last few months has been, is this self-sabotage from the Bulldogs in terms of blowing up what they were doing, bringing in Galvin? I actually don't think that's the case. I actually think it was heading that way anyway, and the wins were masking some of the problems. And yeah, that's the consequence of doing what they did, making such a big decision. If it wasn't gonna be beneficial for them, if they were going to lose games of football, they were going to get criticised for self-sabotage. But I'm telling you, there were signs, and they could see internally that things were heading down this path anyway with the previous spine that they had. How do they turn it around? Well, as I said at the start of this discussion, I still think Matt Burton, the energy he brings when he plays well, is completely. It just changes the Bulldogs completely. And there's no doubt that the onus will be on him to turn that around.
Let's hear from Trent Robinson out of that one. Flip to the Roosters, and he's pretty satisfied with where things are at right now.
You can all sort of talk about it in the pre-season and decide on what your style is, but you got to play it and live it a bit more. And so we had to rediscover that. We knew what we wanted to be, but you have to play that. And we've been taking our time to do that over the course of the season. We've been talking about it, and we've decided on how we want to play. And we're going about playing that at the moment.
So it's the style and the application of the style, which obviously has been garnished somewhat by the fact that Sam Walker's there now, and you can really you can finish things when you've got a player like him with the immense amount of skill he's got. But that style, Hindy, just describe it, what you see and how it might serve them if they get to September.
It reminds me a little bit of the Roosters of old, with that big, strong, powerful forward pack who are willing to go out there and just bash teams, and that's what they want to do. They just want to bash you with Spencer Leniu and White out there. They're big boppers or skittle players, and then you get your finesse of Walker out there as well, and Savala, like you got him back out there as well. So you got your two starting halves again, which makes a massive difference. And of course, you got Teddy at the back. So their spine is, I think they've got a complete spine at the moment, which they haven't had majority of the year, like their proper one. So you got Teddy at the back, who's probably playing his best footy he has in years.
Best fullback
But
in the comp.
by a mile. And you got him in there who's not having to worry again now about trying to be the number one. He's just playing his own football now that Sammy Walker's back. You got your back row, Angus Crichton, who I think has been a little bit quiet compared to previous years, but he's starting to find form again. So they've just, Victor Radley, he's not worried about, going out trying to be the hard man and trying to bash everyone. He's just going out making his tackles and playing some long minutes there. So they've got their team complete now, and I think that's the scary thing for the opposition, where they're able to go in there. And also too, the start of that game last night, they just had even though you got Burton's kick, big long kicking game, they just chipped away the Chooks just chipped away and just taking metres every set in that opening probably 10 minutes. They just take another 10 metres off them with their attacking kick, another 10 metres. So they just kept pinning them back down in their own end, and that was a sign of the Roosters were on for me.
Yeah, and obviously it was meant to be a reset year, Chammy, for the Roosters, with all the players going out at the end of 2024. 2025, it's like, okay, let's sort ourselves out for 2026. They've obviously got a stack of young, promising players come through, but it's fair to say they're ahead of schedule. They've had some losses where you scratch your head and go, how did that happen? But then they have some wins, like the one I remember in Gosford against the Sharks, and this was in the Origin period where the Sharks had 0 Origin players, and they go up there and towel them. Things like that. And then last night, they're a bit ahead of where maybe everyone thought they were going to be.
It was really interesting what Trent Robinson said in that press conference, because I got to spend quite a bit of time. I was fortunate enough at the start of last season to spend time with the Roosters in Las Vegas, in LA, in the lead-up, inside team meetings, watching the way Trent Robinson speaks to the players. And I spoke to him a lot off the record about just his coaching and where the team was at. And you got the feeling that there was a lot of responsibility on the way he handled it and the way he wanted to play. And I feel as though when Cooper Cronk went to that club, he changed the way they did things. And I think it gave them this false sense of, we can continue to do this after he's gone and play the way Cooper played in the structure. And I think that having the discussion internally about the way they wanted to play.
Totally different style of player, though.
It is. Yeah. And remember a couple of years ago, we wrote the story about, I think there was tension there with the Walker family and the way they wanted, or the Roosters wanted Sammy to play.
You couldn't get two more different halfbacks in an attacking sense.
Well, I think it looks as though now the Roosters have just said, okay, keys to the castle. Yep. We're going to do things your way. And I could see that last year when I was with them. Sammy Walker, the involvement in him in team discussions, like that's the key. And I can see that the evolution in Trent Robinson's coaching. They want to play a certain way. It's different to what they're used to.
Remember when he dropped him last year as well?
Yeah, was it last year or the year before?
Year before.
Year before, yeah.
That was around that time. That was around the time of the stories about Cooper Cronk and his influence on the team. Sam Walker's he's still so young. Like, he's a tremendous player. And I think the Roosters should be commended, and Robbo, for the way they've decided to handle this year, because most people said this was a complete reset, rebuild. And now I think they're in the conversation. They can do some damage in September.
How much?
Oh, after the last couple of games and the way they're playing and the confidence that they're playing with, a lot of damage, I reckon, if they get it right on the day. But I suppose anyone in that top 8, if they get it right on the day, is going to do
Could be like
damage.
You guys in 09, make it all the way to the grand final.
Well, they've got the team that can do it. Well, in all honesty, across the board, you look at their team.
Yeah.
They look at their team. They got from fullback to front row. Like White, he's getting better and better each game. He's starting to learn that, it's not just about attack, it's about defence as well, and turning up for your teammates, where he wasn't doing that probably at the start of the year. They've all started to change. They're all starting to play some better footy at the right time of the year. So they are a genuine chance of ruffling some feathers in the semi-final series.
You brought up Teddy, and this might be a conversation for later in the show, but the way he's played, he's the best fullback in the comp, could win the Dally M. Is he back in the box seat for the Australian number 1 jersey, or is his time done?
No, I don't think it's. I had him there pushing hard for the fullback spot for Origin, and I was on his side the year before as well. Like, everyone was writing him off a couple of years ago about, but I'm looking, no, Teddy's still playing the same sort of footy. He hasn't gone backwards. It's just that Dylan Edwards had some great years, so he's definitely in the mix to be pushing hard for that number 1 jersey for the Kangaroos for sure. Like, Dylan Edwards,
he's had a rough.
He hasn't had he's not his best year.
No.
Let's put it like, and then he's had those injuries as well with I think it was his quad or his hamstring. So he's coming back from that. He's starting to get fit again now. Had a bit of a shocker on the weekend with a couple of handling errors back into the game, but that happens. But yeah, Teddy's pushing hard, real hard.
The Roosters run home, by the way. Para, Melbourne, Souths. Ooh,
Para first up, that's a toughie.
I'm looking at that last one, actually. And then Dogs have got Melbourne, Penrith, Cronulla. Ooh, that'll sharpen them up for the finals as
It'll be
well.
a big month for the Dogs.
Yeah, so that's the run home. Wait, we can't mention that at Triple M, can we?
No,
That's your
don't
mate's
mention that.
radio show. Did you smash him in the ratings, by the way? Your old mate
Mate,
Fletch?
look, ratings to me, I don't even. I'm too fresh at this job. I don't know what ratings mean.
No, you need to know if more people are listening to you, because then you can give him all kinds of grief.
No, I don't do that.
Humility.
Yeah, that's what the word I was looking for.
No.
No, if I ever won a grand final, you wouldn't even hear about it. That's the type of bloke I am. It'd be tattooed all over me, but you wouldn't hear me say. You know those guys that get the little their emblem on their bicep or anything? I'd have my whole body, my whole front, my chest.
You look like you're in Blink 182.
Would be be a big eel.
Like Nathan Cleary's panther tattoo. That huge one he's got here. He's got a massive panther on his. I don't know why I'm saying here. No one can see that on the radio, but
Brilliantly done, Jamie.
Jamie Lyons got the best one ever when he went back and played for the We War Panthers, and he's got a panther on his arm, and it is the worst looking panther I've ever.
That was in his gap year, wasn't it?
It was in his gap year. Yes.
We might do a segment a bit later. Well, we've got a gap in the rundown. It's crap tattoos from footy players.
Yeah, Jamie Lyon, if you're listening, killer, send us a photo in.
Thirsty Camel, thanks to our friends at Thirsty Camel, by the way. Camel on down to Thirsty Camel bottle shops, and for unseriously good deals, drink responsibly. This is the Saturday Scrum. Tino, 10-year deal? Possible? Is this cooking away in the background here? Chammy, what's going on with Tino at the Gold Coast? Is he going to bail? Is he going to go to the Dragons? Is he on the radar of Perth? Is he going to stay with Gold Coast?
Oh, look, as a Dragons fan, I'd love him to end up with the Dragons, but I don't see that happening. I can't see him heading to the Dragons. I think there's the same thing we had around Kalen Ponga is these guys come to the realisation that do you want to waste the prime years of your career in a team that isn't going to challenge for a premiership? And Tino's having those conversations with his manager at the moment. He'll hit free agency on November 1. Perth will come in with a massive bid. I think Gus said the other day, no front row is worth $1.5 million in a salary cap in a salary cap system that it is at the moment. So there's no doubt there are going to be teams who will be willing to break the bank, which I guess gets to the argument, does the NRL need to involve itself and protect clubs from themselves? Because I think when you're offering 10-year deals or you're allowing player options and things that, as much as I love it as a journo because it causes chaos in the player market, which creates plenty of news and discussion for us in the media, there is an element where the NRL needs to protect the clubs from themselves because whether you like it or not, there is a selfish mentality from some people who the mentality is, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I won't be here to see it. I won't be here when it becomes a problem. I don't want to name names, but there's definitely been decisions before made by people thinking that's okay, because I'm happy to take the risk because we'll get the praise if it works, but if it doesn't, then someone else can deal with the shit sandwich we pass down to them. So I think it should be capped at 5 years. No one should get more than a 5-year deal, and also think there should be some sort of tiering with the younger guys, who you look at someone like a Josh Schuster or players who have been given big money at an early age and think, is that actually the best thing for them? Or players who have been enticed to move away.
They have that in the NBA, don't they?
I don't know.
They cap your rookie contract.
Yeah.
Like it's tiered and it's capped. And then once you do your 3 years or whatever, then bang, go out and, I don't know if the exact.
AFL do something similar, don't
Something
they?
similar as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's how it always used. That's how it used to work. Like I first came in, I was on $20,000 a year as an 18-year-old. I had match payments, and then it'd go up slightly the following year, then slightly the next.
Overs.
Just what he said. It probably was. But I think clubs and, well, I'm going to say, I think clubs get a little bit excited about certain players. And then all of a sudden there's a hype. The media builds up these players, these kids, to be the next best thing. And all of a sudden clubs are paying on what could be, on potential. And that doesn't come through. So I'm a bit with Shammy there. I'd like to see them kind of once they've got to that level after 3 or 4 years of solid first grade, then or maybe not even, that's probably a little bit too long. Well, 2 or 3 years of solid first grade, being right up there with the best players. And that's when those kind of big money deals start happening.
Because you reward the team that develops them as well, because you know that you're not going to lose them to someone who's going to pay overs for them.
You're rewarding the player on their ability, not on what they're doing now, not down the track what they could be.
What's the longest contract you offered when you were coach, JD? Did you ever think about a 10-year deal for a player?
No.
Lewis,
No. Oi.
See, sometimes he can't help himself.
I was thinking.
You can imagine, JD.
It's a good opportunity for me to say I've never had a conversation with Lewis Dodd or ever been involved in a decision about him coming to the club.
10% of
And I
his
feel
thoughts.
for the kid.
Yeah, exactly. 10% of his thoughts actually come out. You can imagine what the other 90% is in that brain of his that doesn't get out to us. Sorry, I interrupted there. So
It's no, I don't. I've never even thought about a 10-year contract, and I don't think it does the player any favours. I don't know why a player would want a 10-year contract unless you're happy just to get paid and turn up and wear the tracksuit every week.
If you're Tino, you'd like that 10-year deal that he's on currently at the moment because he's got 2 get-out clauses.
Well, that's different because you're getting your 10 years guaranteed. But if you don't
as
like
the player,
it, you can move.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So
all
yeah,
the risk
that
is
is
on the club.
That is the best deal that Tino could have. Like I think his get-out is 27 that he can look, and then again in 30 if he decides to stay, he can look at again in 30, and his contract doesn't finish till 33.
I think half the problem as well now is that the contract, the pay TV contract, the deal covers players' wages. So the clubs aren't actually paying. It's all paid for through the agreement.
18 million distribution, isn't it, per club?
Do you
at the
think
moment?
if clubs had to put in a certain amount of money themselves to run their footy clubs or run their cap, that they'd be offering 10-year deals?
Probably not.
No way. No way, because the risk is way too high.
Yeah.
But because, the funding's coming in, we'll be able to pay it. But it just, the noise around it is
look
non-stop.
at Dylan Brown. Look at this situation, and as we've all said, good luck to Dylan, but I was critical of the club and Peter O'Sullivan, the deal, because none of those guys are going to be there in 10 years if it does turn to SHIT. They're not going to be there. And the NRL, it does the game no favours because it becomes I know that the headlines are created by us in the media, but reality is that it's not going to do Dylan any favours because he's going to deal with relentless pressure, Newcastle, and the game itself, because you've taken him off the market for 10 years, taking him out of Parramatta, where he's been there since he was 14, 15 years old. Parramatta had a 7-year deal on the table, and Dylan said, if you can give me a long-term deal, I'll stay. But they've given you 7 years, and they shouldn't be discouraged for bringing a kid in who was 14, 15 years old, throwing the world at him financially, but also making a long-term investment in him. And in the end, he goes to Newcastle anyway. The system allows that. That's not fair.
Where does Tino lob? Or is this going to take on saga proproportions over the next couple of months and we'll be talking about it?
The Bears, yeah. Nothing's happened.
It'd be a great pickup from
I think he goes there.
Shami, can the Titans at the moment, if he decides he's not wanting to take up that contract, can they offer him more again on top of that inside that 10-year deal?
Yeah, well, if he does, that'll just be him notifying the club that he won't be taking up the option, and they can upgrade it. They can do it now. They can just go to him and say, mate, we want to upgrade your current offer, your current deal, and there's nothing stopping them from doing that. But
it's all well and good offering a player a 10-year deal, but what are you going to put around that player for 10 years?
Yeah.
What are you going to? What is the club going to look like? What resources is the club going to have in terms of coaching, high performance, all that sort of stuff that's going to help the club be successful, so he can maximise the obvious talent that you see in him, And that's, I remember Ash Taylor signed for $1 million on big money, absolutely ruined the kid. It did because
the pressure on him to do it.
Anthony Milford.
He was never $1 million player.
No. And but that was the media again, wasn't it? And that was the Broncos, Titans. All of a sudden, his contract money on potential just went through the roof.
I remember, I think it was Garth Brennan was coaching at the time and said in a press conference, well, he's paid $1 million, he's got to perform like one. And well, he's never been. He hasn't played Origin. He hasn't played Test footy. He hasn't got that experience he's got the price tag, but he hasn't got the other runs on the board that allow him to be that player. And that's hard.
And that's not his fault. That's not his fault. No.
Has anyone signed a long-term deal and won a comp? Because you talk about how hard it is then, the pieces around you and what you do. I'm thinking Tamalolo signed in 17, so they didn't go on and win it. Manly hasn't won one with Cherry Evans. I'm trying to think of the other long-term deals. Like, it does hamstring what you can do as a football club if you're paying big money to someone for a long-term deal.
There's 2 sets of books mean like 2 double.
Going back there again. I thought we left that in the first hour.
We had therapy and we finished it for the day, but you're going to go back there.
Saturday Scrum. Thanks to Thirsty Camel.